So now we're gonna start with the next chapter, that is some natural phenomena, which is a chapter in your 8th standard NCERT. All right. Now this is also quite an easy chapter. There is not much. So what are we actually talking about in this chapter is mostly about charges. ठीक है? Charges के बारे में बात करेंगे यहाँ पे. How you can charge by rubbing, types of charges, transfer of charges, how does that happen? What is lightning and thunder, वो कैसे होता है? Earthquake क्या होती है? Earthquake पे seismograph, Richter scale, what are the how does an earthquake form, what are the effects, how are they supposed to be measured, and the safety measures related to it. All right, तो शुरू करते हैं. Charges. Firstly, what do you understand by charges? Basically, charges are what? ठीक है. अब charges के लिए हमें ये समझना जरूरी है कि charges can be static or it can be moving. All right, charges can be static or moving, but now what are we going to do or talk about? Charging by rubbing. So I'm pretty sure that when you have studied this chapter, you would have seen that people have tried to rub a glass rod with a cloth material, or you have tried to rub a comb with your hair, and then you have tried to just catch some small pieces of paper. Correct? So these are what you have charged one item by rubbing it against another. All right, what did you do? You have charged a substance by rubbing it against another, and the way you have rubbed it, you can see that the charges were not moving, right? The charges were not readily moving by themselves and going to the other substance. What did they do? They were at their position. We rubbed it and we made sure that the charges get transferred. So this kind of charges are known as static charges. What are they known as? These kind of charges are known as static charges. Okay? All right. So the electric charges that we have generated by rubbing two things together is known as static charge. Moving on. In our house, all the lights that get switched on, the fans that are switched on, and all of this that we have, right? Those are what? Electrical charges. And what do you think that is? Are those static charges too? No, that charge is actually moving. All right. In that case, what is happening? The charges are actually moving around, and they have the capacity to move from one place to another by themselves. Clear, guys? So what do we understand? We have understood static charge and we have understood moving charge. All right. Now what are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about types of charges. So charges are basically of two kinds, positive and negative. Okay? Positive and negative are the two types of charges that we have. And just like how we have studied about magnetic poles, that like poles, north pole and north pole, they do not get attracted, but north pole and south pole, they start getting attracted, right? That's the same case with them as well. If positive charges are kept near positive charges, then what will happen? They will repel. They will not try to be friends. They will move away from each other. But if you keep positive and negative charges together, then they will be attractive towards each other. Am I clear? Okay, moving on. We're going to talk about something known as electroscope. Electroscope is basically a device. Now, what is happening in electroscope? An electroscope is usually used to understand if a subject or if an object is carrying any charge or not. All right. So, what you can see, there are, two similar type of things. Okay? Two similar type of things. If you rub something and then take it near this point, what will happen? If it is the same charge, then the things will move away. But if you are bringing different kind of charge towards this, what will happen? It will not move away. It will get attracted. So if there is an object that has charge, and if I bring it to this point, that means what will happen? Both of these will have the same charge and they will move away. So that will make me understand that this thing or the object that I got near to the device had charge, right? Am I clear or did you get confused? I'm going to tell you again. Electroscope is a device which makes us identify if an object has charge. What is the build of an electroscope? Take a look at this part, okay? What are you going to do here? Oopsie, sorry. What are we going to do in case of electroscope? In electroscope, first of all, you need a glass jar. ठीक है, देखो यहाँ पे एक glass jar है. This is your glass jar. You need a wire that is connecting you to, let's say, that two similar kind of wire, okay? You have two similar kind of wire. Now these wires will be just dangling. Let's say that I have rubbed a glass rod with a woolen cloth or something, or let's say that I have combed my hair with a comb and then I have taken the comb near it, right? Once I have taken the comb near it, the charges from the comb will get transferred to this wire and come to these two, right? And when they have reached to these two things together, what will happen? Like charges, they will repel each other. So that will make me understand that the comb had charge, right? So electroscope was used in the olden days to understand if an object had charge or not. Okay? Now we're gonna talk about earthing. What is earthing? आप लोगों ने अपने घर पे देखा है कभी अगर प्लग सॉकेट निकाला होगा, कभी प्लग सॉकेट उसमें तीन पिन होती है, राइट? एक होती है बड़ी वाली सी, एक छोटी वाली सी जो पॉजिटिव होती है, एक और छोटी वाली सी जो नेगेटिव होती है. तो वो बड़ी वाली जो है दैट इज एक्चुअली फॉर अर्थिंग. अर्थिंग क्या करती है? Whenever the charges are moving, there are a lot of free charges which might give us shock. ठीक है? Which might give us shock, and also we need to save ourselves, right? हमारे safety के लिए earth is a big potential. So what are we going to do? We are going to route all these free charges to the earth so that all the charges go directly towards the earth and they do not give us a shock. Am I clear? Are you understanding what is earthing? So what are we doing? We are taking a wire and connecting it to earth so that all the charges which are free flowing, which might give us a shock, they all directly go to the earth and they do not make us get any shock. Clear? That is known as earthing. So what is written? The process of transferring of charge from a charged object to the earth is called earthing. Clear, guys? ठीक है? Now let's understand what is lightning and how is lightning formed. ठीक है? So what happens? Clouds that are there, right? The clouds that have formed already, they have vigorous movements. They keep moving from one place to another, right? And because they are moving from because they are continuously moving, that causes a separation of charges. There is a charge separation that happens, as you can see it here. See, in these layers you have plus 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 plus, and in this layer you have minus 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 minus, right? Now what happens? These minus charges, these negative charges are sandwiched between the positive charges here and the positive charges that are present in the ground, which is exactly what is written in the second point. What is it written? It is written that the positive charges collect near the upper edges of the cloud. मतलब क्लाउड जो है, बादलों का जो ऊपर वाला हिस्सा है, वहां पे सारे पॉजिटिव चार्जेस रहते हैं. नीचे आ जाती है नेगेटिव चार्जेस और ग्राउंड में फिर आती है पॉजिटिव चार्जेस. अब नेगेटिव एंड पॉजिटिव चार्जेस क्या होती है? दे मीट. जैसे ही वो मीट होती है, क्या होती है? एक बड़ी सी स्ट्रीक ऑफ ब्राइट लाइट आ जाती है जिसके साथ साउंड भी आती है, एंड दैट इज लाइटनिंग. क्लियर? एवरीबॉडी अंडरस्टूड? अब जब लाइटनिंग होती है तो हमें क्या क्या सेफ्टी मेजर्स लेनी होती है? व्हाट आर द थिंग्स दैट वी शुड बी डूइंग? Do not carry an umbrella. Your umbrella does have metal rods and it can conduct. The umbrella can conduct, okay? And that will be dangerous for you. So do not carry an umbrella. Do not stand in open fields, okay? In the open fields, there are a lot of positive charges which are just there. And if you are standing in the open field, it is quite possible that you might get a shock too. Okay? Alright? Stay far away from all trees. Again, why? Because there are a lot of positive charges which are just hanging around. And trees can also conduct trees can also conduct all the charges. So what is happening? That's exactly why you are not supposed to stand in front of a tree, near a tree, because the trees can conduct the charges and that might affect you as well. So stay away from the trees and do not lie on the ground. Why shouldn't you be lying? क्योंकि if you are lying, then you are giving a lot of area of your body to be stuck by a thunder. Instead, squat and sit down. Give it as less area as possible so that you can escape from the lightning. All right. Moving on to the next part. If you are inside, so we were talking about if you are outside, what you should be doing. Now, if you are inside, what should you be doing? Avoid contact with telephone cords, electrical wires and metal pipes, because all of these are conductors of charges. If you are using conductors of charges, it is quite possible that you might get a shock. Okay? Avoid contact with running water. Running water is also a good conductor of electricity, good conductor of charges. Hence, do not be in touch with running water. I'm not saying that you should not drink water. Drink water, but not running water. Tape से जो पानी आ रही है, या फिर if you are taking a shower in a bathtub or something, then you should not be doing it. Okay. Electrical appliances should be unplugged. All these computers or ACs, your refrigerators, all those should be, all those should be unplugged. Okay. Moving on. Let's talk about earthquake. How is earthquake formed? Before for understanding how are earthquakes formed, let's understand what is the structure of earth. So guys, do you all know that the inside of the earth is known as the inner core? इनर कोर से थोड़ा बाहर है आउटर कोर, उससे बाहर है मैंटल और उसके बाहर है क्रस्ट. क्रस्ट इज द टॉप मोस्ट लेयर ऑफ द अर्थ. ऑलराइट, क्रस्ट इज द टॉप मोस्ट लेयर ऑफ द अर्थ. सो on earth, right, you have certain plates which are called as tectonic plates. Okay, what are they known as? Tectonic plates. So when the tectonic plates, they get struck, the tectonic plates are basically like just moving around themselves. So sometimes what happens when they're moving, suddenly they get struck, they get stuck. Okay, they get stuck to each other and they're not able to move away from each other. So they keep tugging each other and they're trying to move away. But when they're doing this, what happens? A lot of pressure is getting created. And when this pressure is getting created, suddenly one climbs on top of another. So when the other one climbs on top of another, what happens? They start to shake. That vibration is earthquake. Read this. When tectonic plates get stuck and cannot easily slide against each other, they keep pushing and creating pressure, causing the crust to shake violently, creating earthquake. तो मैंने क्या बोला? Tectonic plates, they keep moving. They keep come in contact also, but they slide easily. But sometimes what happens? They get stuck. And that time they are not able to move. So while they are trying to get away from each other, they create a lot of pressure. They keep trying to move away from each other. They keep creating a lot of pressure. And in that situation, what happens? Suddenly one climbs on top of another and it starts to shake violently at that time. That causes earthquake. Okay? Moving on, what are we supposed to understand now? Effects. What are the effects of earthquake? Earthquake से क्या क्या हो सकता है? Earthquake से ground shake हो सकता है. The usual tremors that we feel. Ground rupture. कभी कभार इतने जोर से earthquake आती है कि मिट्टी फट ही जाती है. There is a rupture, there is a fracture that happens on the surface of the earth, right? Landslides are possible. Landslide हो सकती है और at times due to in breakage in the circuit or in the buildings or something, because the buildings also sometimes fall down, what happens? Fire might also occur. Okay? Now what are the things that we have to understand here is measurement. How do we measure an earthquake? How do we measure an earthquake? There are two things. One is seismograph and one is Richter scale. Seismograph. What is seismograph? Seismograph looks like this. Okay, seismograph is basically a line diagram which tells you that what happened during the tremor. How much was the tremor? So it is an instrument that records the seismic waves. It records the seismic waves. All right. So what do you have? You have a frame, a rigid frame. With the frame, a wire is connected. With the wire, a heavy weight is connected, and with the heavy weight, there is a pen that is connected. Now what happened? Here, right here, you have a rotating paper. So the paper keeps moving and goes away, and the pen keeps writing on the paper. Okay? And there is a base. So as the tremors come, as soon as the earth starts shaking, what happens? This weight starts to move. The pen starts to move and the pen starts to write or record the waves. And that exactly is the seismograph. Cool? Now we're going to talk about Richter scale. Basically, Richter scale is also like a graph, and Richter scale measures the power of an earthquake, where the power of an earthquake is expressed in terms of magnitude on a scale. Okay, here the power is expressed as magnitude of a scale. ठीक है, यहाँ पे क्या होता है, ये देखो magnitude. Now what happens is every step is actually 10 times. Every step is actually 10 times. So as you can see, no, not 10 times. It is each level is 10 times, and each level indicates 10 times the amount of shaking. So अगर यहाँ पे 10 है तो अगले वाले में it will be 100, उसके अगले वाले में it will be 1000. ठीक है, तो क्या हो रहा है, 10 times the amount of shaking and 33 times the amount of energy. अगर इस साइड बात करेंगे तो क्या होगा, one step is 33 times ahead of the previous one, and इस साइड की अगर बात करेंगे तो it is 10 times the amount of shaking. और इससे हम एक अर्थक्वेक का मैग्नीट्यूड का पता लगाते हैं. ठीक है, so that's how we measure earthquake. Clear guys, how do we do it? Seismograph and Richter scale. Moving on, now we're going to understand the safety measures. What are the safety measures? What should we be doing? If you are staying in an earthquake prone area, then use of mud or timber is better than the heavy construction material. If you are in an earthquake prone area, then it is it is advisable that you do not construct your houses with heavy materials. Instead, make it with timber or mud. ठीक है? If you are making cupboards and shelves, then please fix it with the wall so that it doesn't fall down with a little bit of tremor. ठीक है? Firefighting equipments, keep them because buildings might collapse and fire might be there. ठीक है? Take shelter under a table just to save your head. Go ahead and go inside or go under a table so that you can save yourself. Stay away from tall and heavy objects. Of course, that's very that's very commonsensical stuff. And while on bed, protect your head with a pillow. If at all you are on a bed, then protect your head with a pillow.